We spend at least a third of our lives dreaming. Dreams are an internal process that are influenced by external processes. So whether or not you believe they're just figments of the imagination in some way, or they are a connection to some other deeper realm of reality, they still exist. Even if it's just our interpretation and our fabrication, they can still give us deep insights into ourselves. If you can learn to control your dreams, and if you can learn to remember them better and work with them more, you can potentially take back a third of your life. The universe out there is just as vast and infinite as the universe in here. Dreams have given us some of the most incredible discoveries in science, some of the most incredible poetry, and some of the greatest pieces of artwork. Ancient cave paintings dating back tens of thousands of years show signs of humans exploring dreams and questioning their significance. So in this dream session, let's go down a deep dive throughout the entire history of what we understand as dreams. The best current dating that we have, it shows that the Aboriginal Australians were making cave paintings about dreams. Actually, their entire understanding of reality is based on this concept called Dreamtime, where they believe other beings, even their ancestors, all dwell. And it's an alternate reality, basically, that they believe that they visit in their dreams. A lot of them are still holding on to these traditional beliefs up to this day. If we keep going in the timeline, we get to the time when the first great civilizations started writing things down that we know of. And that's about 5,000 years ago in ancient Sumer. These are some of the earliest documented clear thoughts that humans had about dreams. Around 3100 BC, the Sumerians left us some of the first writings about dreams, and they believed distinctly that when people were sleeping, a part of their soul or a part of their essence or a part of their being would leave their body and wander around the dream realm. Similar to what some people look at as astral projection these days, actually. The ancient Mesopotamians believed that this travel was real and that it could be dangerous, and they had these demonic figures that could affect you, and they caused nightmares, and they would cause sleep paralysis by sitting on your chest. I actually did a full deep dive on the history of angels and demons, so you should definitely check that video out, where I go into more depth on these figures. One of the earliest recorded dreams comes from 3100 BC in ancient Mesopotamia. It's part of an epic poem called The Descent of Inanna, where the goddess Inanna's sister interprets a dream to find hidden messages in it. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, written roughly between 2100 and 1200 BC, they talk about the hero Gilgamesh getting powerful prophetic dreams that guide him and warn him of different dangers. By about 1200 BC, the Egyptians, they actually compiled a system of dream interpretation into what's known as the Egyptian Book of the Dreams. They have whole lists of dreams and circumstances and symbols, and then they interpret them, whether they're good or bad, and things like that. There's also thousands of different dreams written down by Egyptians in first person that have been discovered. Now, as far as I could tell, none of those have been compiled into a single source in any type of way that I can find, so that's actually something I'm working on. I'm working on building a list of all of these different dreams that have been written down throughout time in ancient Egypt and trying to put them all together and maybe even categorize them in some way. But they also practiced dream incubation. They had temples that were dedicated to deities like Bez, and they believed that they could go into these temples and they could sleep overnight and come up with solutions to problems or different prophecies or different answers to the past that they were looking for. So when someone says that they want to try to come up with an answer for something, or they need to think about something, and they say that they're going to sleep on it, I think that idea goes back a lot farther than people realize. From Egypt, we can move on to the classical world of Greece and Rome. There were gods associated with sleep and dreams in their pantheons, and people would seek different things from them in the dream realm. In ancient Greece, starting around roughly 800 BC, people would look to have healing dreams in different temples dedicated to Asclepius, who was the god of healing. In their mythology, they also had a god named Hypnos, who was the god of sleep, and his son Morpheus was the god of dreams. The Romans had a similar pantheon to the Greeks, and they actually worshipped Somnus as the embodiment of sleep. That was their anthropomorphized version of sleep. Then around 350 BC, we had the philosopher Aristotle. He started suggesting that dreams had physiological meaning to them. He thought that maybe people could actually study them and apply them in some sort of way that could affect our physical body. So this kind of foreshadows our modern desire to find actual practical applications for dreams in everyday life. Around that same time, in ancient China, there was a philosopher named Zhuangzi, and he was pretty well known for exploring the nature of reality and dreams, and he had the famous butterfly dream, where he asked, "Am I a butterfly dreaming I'm a man, or a man dreaming I'm a butterfly?" Because his dream was so real that it made him question his entire reality. Before we get any farther, we kind of get into the period of time where we start to see the word dream, or the roots of where we got the word dream from. In Old English, the word dream actually meant joy, or music, or mirth. It wasn't until Middle English around the 13th century that the Old Norse word drum, which meant like a sleeping vision, started to get its modern meaning and started to get mixed into the word dream, which meant joy. So by the end of the 14th century, the older meanings were pretty much gone. The word that used to mean joyful music started to describe the silent or surreal world of our sleep. Shakespeare in the early 1600s had his play called The Tempest, and that had the line in it, "We are such stuff as dreams are made of." And even though it was most likely written by one of his contemporaries, it really shows the long-standing human fascination with these type of concepts. Around 1797, Samuel Coleridge said that his poem, Kubla Khan, was inspired from an opium-induced dream, actually. There's handwritten letters from Beethoven to his family members saying how a lot of his music pieces were inspired from dreams. And Mary Shelley, who wrote the original Frankenstein, said that it was largely inspired by dreams. At least the most key scenes in Frankenstein were inspired from her dreams directly. In 1865, August Kekule had a dream about a snake biting its tail, and this led to his discovery of the benzene ring. This was a major scientific discovery at the time that wasn't even able to be fully confirmed until later on. The popular view at the time was that carbon atoms could only link in chains, which didn't fit with benzene's properties. After struggling with the problem, August Kekule described having a dream while he was dozing in front of a fire. In his dream, he saw chains of atoms twisting and turning like snakes, and then one of the snakes formed a circle and bit its own tail. They didn't have high-powered electron microscopes at the time to prove this, but he realized through this dream that the structure of benzene was a closed circuit. And this was the only chemical at that time known to have that structural property. Since then, we've discovered a lot more, but that was a major breakthrough at the time. The symbol of a snake biting its tail, or a serpent in a circle that's biting its tail, is a really common symbol throughout history all over the world. It's commonly referred to as an Ouroboros. In Jungian psychology, it's considered an important archetype that represents the undifferentiated state of infancy in the process of individuation. But generally, just this image of a snake or a serpent biting its own tail pretty much represents wholeness, infinity, unity, regeneration, rebirth, and interconnectedness of all things, pretty much. So that's another idea you got to keep in mind. If you're dreaming of the Ouroboros, it could indicate a movement towards some sort of psychological integration or bringing together different aspects of your personality or life experiences. It could also symbolize the merging of opposites, like the conscious and the unconscious mind finding some sort of common ground, or what you might consider the spiritual and the material realms finding a place to meet. It could also represent something that might make you feel like you're stuck in a cycle that won't stop. all of these things. There's a lot to analyze when it comes to dream symbolism, but those are just some things to keep in mind. Robert Louis Stevenson dreamed the entire plot for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We can also see how dreams have led to some of the most famous and powerful songs ever written. Paul McCartney said that his entire melody for the song Yesterday was inspired from a dream. After he had the dream, he woke up with the melody in his head, and he swore that it must have existed somewhere. He thought he must have heard it somewhere, so he consulted all of his musician friends and anyone he could, basically, to find out if that song existed and what the song was. He came to find out that it was a unique song that he had heard in his dream, so he went on to record it, and it became a major hit. And his song Let It Be was inspired by dreams about his mom. So when he's speaking about Mother Mary, he wasn't talking about the biblical one. His mom actually died when he was young, and he would talk about how he would sleep at night, and in his dreams, when he would feel troubled, his mom would come to him in his dreams after she died and comfort him. He's actually talking about his mother who passed away that he would see in his dreams. During the major scientific revolution of the 1950s, Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago discovered rapid eye movement, or REM sleep. They originally called it paradoxical sleep because the brain mimicked what it does in waking life. So once people would go to sleep, they would notice that the brain activity would die down, and there would be very little brain activity when the people first fall asleep. And then as they entered this different stage of sleep, they noticed that the brain activity would pick back up to the point where they couldn't even tell if the person was awake or sleeping in the next room. When you see someone's eyes fluttering while they're sleeping, that's when they're in the rapid eye movement stage. And a lot of times where these people are looking in their dream is where their eyes are actually moving underneath their eyelids in real life. So people would wake up, for example, they'd wake up and say that they were watching a tennis match, and while they were sleeping, the scientists were observing their eyes going back and forth, just as an example. They could test this then, and they could tell people next time that they go into a dream, look up twice and then look down twice, and that would confirm that these people would have conscious control of their eye movements that could then be recognized by the scientists. And now this has been confirmed over and over in labs, and they've even come up with a certain type of language that these people can speak through the direction of their eye movements. If someone's having a lucid dream, scientists can get feedback from them while that person is dreaming. They could even ask them certain math questions and have the person answer it through their eye movements. And this really did open up a new era of laboratory research for dreams. Salvador Dali, who's a very famous surrealist painter, he would go to sleep with a key or a spoon in his hand, and he would hold it over a plate so that right when he would start to fall asleep, the spoon or the key would fall onto the plate and wake him up. And then he would use those bizarre types of images and feelings that he had in that state to inspire some of his pieces of art. And when you're in that stage of just falling to sleep, that's when you're in the hypnagogic state. He wasn't the only one to do this. A lot of people throughout history claim to do similar things like this to inspire them and to get certain ideas or certain answers to questions. The early to mid-20th century brought us the rise of psychoanalysis. Sigmund Freud viewed dreams as the royal road to the unconscious. He believed they were disguised expressions of some of our deepest desires and conflicts, and he definitely helped push us into a lot of incredible discoveries. But a lot of us understand these days how limited his theories were. He pretty much thought that they were strictly about wish fulfillment, and they were expressed completely through symbolism. Carl Jung, who was a student of Freud, brought us the idea of the collective unconscious, and I have a few deep dive videos into Carl Jung and his belief on dreams and dream symbolism. He brought us the concept of universal archetypes and different personas that represent the human psyche in different ways. And a lot of his studies and experiments have given countless people deeper insights into the human mind, still to this day. So in 1921, the pharmacologist Otto Lowe, he had a dream that gave him the exact experimental design that was needed to prove the chemical transmission of nerve impulses. This is a fundamental principle of neuroscience. It was a discovery that later earned him the Nobel Prize. So with some of this history and mythology and interpretation and inspiration in mind, let's talk about what some of the leading hypotheses are in the 20th and 21st centuries for why we dream. We have the threat simulation hypothesis. This says that dreams help us rehearse our responses to potential dangers in the real world, and it likely enhances our survival skills. Now, of course, I think all of these ideas are possible and all of them are actually likely, and I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think that dreams are all of these things and more. There's also the memory consolidation theory. This says that dreams play a crucial role in processing and storing memories from the day, so a lot of the things that we might want to remember the most, we might try to repeat them in some type of way in our dream. There's been lots and lots of studies where teachers will give students some information in the beginning of the day and then test them on that at the end of the day. And then they'll try giving other students information at the end of the day and then testing them on that information the next morning. And the results of the tests where the students get to sleep on the information overnight always resulted in much higher scores. So it shows that there's something about dreaming at night that helps us consolidate and retain certain information. The activation synthesis hypothesis says that dreams are the brain's attempt to make a narrative from this random neural activity and information that goes on during REM sleep, and also sometimes outside of REM sleep too. The information processing theory says that dreams are a way for us to sort out and integrate different emotions and information that we receive throughout the day. And there's even been problem-solving theories that people talk about where dreams kind of give us a novel perspective for solving our waking life problems in a way that might be more easily digestible and comprehensible for people. There's a Harvard engineer named Paul Horowitz who uses his dreams to help him design laser telescope controls. He keeps a pad and pen by his bed and then dreams solutions that help him design these telescopes. This last hypothesis focuses on the idea that if you don't use it, you lose it, basically. With our eyes, if we don't use them enough, they will eventually get weaker too. So this is a way for our brain to keep itself stimulated and sharp and to keep the visual cortex activated. And that's why we have REM sleep. At least that's the idea in this hypothesis. Beyond why we dream and what dreaming can do for us, there's also the question of whether or not we can communicate or share dreams. There's lots of modern research and ongoing studies on dream incubation, attempting to consciously influence our dream content. In 2021, research by REM Space Labs showed that there could be two-way communication between people while they're dreaming with different technology. I actually went into more depth on that in another video. I'll definitely link that too. But REM space shows definitively how two people that are dreaming at the same time can communicate with each other during those dreams using external technology. And the future for that is going to be incredible. I'm definitely going to keep people updated. But check out my full video on that if you're interested. And possibly the most science fiction-like of all the new breakthroughs is the proof showing that we can actually record people's dreams in a way and play them back in a video after that person wakes up. There was a key study in 2013 in Kyoto, Japan, where researchers successfully trained an AI to predict and even reconstruct rudimentary visual images from people's brain activity during REM sleep. This started out with them taking a bunch of different subjects. They would play thousands of videos for these people while they were awake. And they would see how different areas of the brain would respond while they're watching these videos. And they would basically map out the electrical activity of the brain while people are watching and reacting to different videos and images and sounds. And then they could see how the brain lights up while these people are dreaming. And based on the electrical activity that was going on while they were sleeping, these scientists can predict what they were dreaming about, and they would wake these people up. They would do these blind studies where people would write down what they had dreams about, and they would see if that matched what the scientists predicted that they were dreaming about. And then based on that, they could start to reconstruct images of what these people were dreaming about. Now, of course, this is still in the earlier stages, but some of these have been really, really interesting to look at, and they definitely show how promising it'll be for the future. We're going to be able to watch our dreams. And potentially they could even translate these things in real time onto a screen so that we could see what someone is dreaming while they're dreaming it. So, although we're starting to map the oceans a lot better, we're even reaching farther out into space, I still think that the mind is one of the most untapped potentials for us. Dreams are definitely one of the most powerful and effective ways to connect and get insights into the human mind. Dreams can be inspirational. They can be used to treat PTSD, depression, insomnia. Lots of studies show how effective visualization can be, even for someone that's practicing sports or different physical activities, and these can all be applied to dreams in different ways. I was first mostly inspired by a dream that I had when I was young, where my grandfather passed away while I was dreaming, and then I woke up and he had actually passed away in real life. I think there's lots of anecdotes that most of us are familiar with through different people that we know about dreams telling the future. Maybe you had a dream about someone and then ended up meeting them later on in life. Maybe certain events that were too specific to be coincidental might have happened to you in a dream and then ended up happening when you woke up. Lots of people have really incredible stories about dreams. So if you've got anything like that, leave it in the comments for me. I'll be putting out an ebook for free on how to dream real soon. So stay tuned for that. I'll email it out to whoever wants it. I really wanted to answer a lot of the basic questions that people have about dreams. So this is going to be all about how to remember your dreams to begin with, and then how to lucid dream and how to influence your dreams. And I'm also going to have some courses available and eventually a master class on some of this stuff. So you can search DK Dreamkeeper on any platform, and you can also find some of my merch on Etsy. I'm going to have all types of free content coming out, so just stay tuned for that. Peace and love, people.